And Thoth suggests that a lot of our problems stem from this lack of inner harmony.
So the key to personal growth and even societal progress lies in finding this balance within ourselves.
That seems to be his message. And he goes even further, offering a radical perspective on death itself.
Wait, death? What does he say about that? I'm suddenly feeling a little nervous.
Don't worry, he doesn't describe it as an ending.
Welcome to Witter. Who Has Time to Read? The podcast that brings deep dives for busy minds. Listen to AI hosts Jane and Dane and get ready to unpack the world's most captivating books in just a fraction of the time. Whether commuting, working out, or just squeezing in a quick break, we deliver key insights, thought-provoking themes, and takeaways you can carry into your day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Plus, use our links in the description to purchase this book. Your support helps us bring more engaging book discussions to you. Listen and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Who has time to read? You do, with Witter.
Hey, Witter listeners, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling a text that's, well, let's just say it's sparked its fair share of debate and head-scratching.
Picture this. You stumble upon a collection of emerald tablets hidden deep inside the Great Pyramid.
Oh, yeah, like something straight out of an Indiana Jones movie.
Exactly. And these tablets, they're inscribed with the secrets of a lost civilization. We're talking the emerald tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean folks.
Yeah, believe me, it's a wild ride.
Yeah.
But before we get swept away by all the, the fantastical stuff, what's the gist here? What's the core message Thoth is trying to convey, even if we take it all with a grain of salt?
At its heart, amidst all the tales of Atlantis and interdimensional travel, the central theme is this humanity is on this grand journey of evolution. And within each of us lies this incredible potential for growth and power.
Okay, color me intrigued, but first things first. Who is this Thoth character? The tablets claim he's an Atlantean priest king who escaped the sinking continent and brought all this ancient wisdom to Egypt.
Right. He's credited with building the Great Pyramid, not as a tomb, but as this massive repository of knowledge. He supposedly ruled for thousands of years. And get this, he even achieved immortality.
Whoa, talk about a long-term leader. Can you imagine the stories this guy could tell?
Oh, absolutely. If only those tablets came with, voice memos, right?
Seriously, though, 16,000 years is a long time to be in charge. You'd think he'd have picked up a few things along the way.
And that's precisely what the tablets suggest. They're his way of passing down his knowledge. Everything from the nature of reality to instructions on how to harness mental and spiritual power.
So basically, we're talking about ancient self-help guides from beyond the grave.
You got it. And here's the kicker. They're written on these indestructible emerald tablets, made from some kind of alchemically transmuted substance. The technology involved boggles the mind.
Seriously, they make diamonds look like cheap costume jewelry. But it gets even weirder, right? The tablets supposedly react to the reader's thoughts.
That's what the text claims, like some sort of ancient interactive technology. It's a fascinating concept, even if it pushes the boundaries of believability.
I can't even get my Kindle to stop recommending books I've never read. Okay, let's talk about Atlantis. The tablets paint it as this technologically advanced civilization powered by something called eternal fire and ruled by these benevolent beings called the Children of Light.
Imagine a society that mastered both technology and spirituality, a balance we often struggle with today.
It really makes you wonder, are we making the same mistakes they did, letting technology run wild without considering the spiritual consequences?
It's a valid question. The tablets say that the Atlanteans eventually fell prey to darkness, which led to the destruction of their civilization. It's like a classic cautionary tale, a reminder that great power comes with great responsibility.
Yeah, kind of like Spider-Man, but with sunken continents instead of radioactive spiders.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the end for everyone, right? Thoth and some others escaped.
That's the story. And they supposedly hid their knowledge in places like the Great Pyramid, hoping to preserve it for future generations.
So maybe Indiana Jones wasn't so far-fetched after all. But the tablets go beyond Atlantis, right? There's mention of these halls of Amenti and Thoth traveling to other planets and dimensions.
Right. The halls of Amenti are described as this hidden realm underneath the Great Pyramid. It's home to these beings who oversee humanity's spiritual evolution, like a cosmic library where the records of our souls are kept.
And Thoth supposedly visits other planets, interacts with advanced extraterrestrial beings. Now that's where things start to feel a bit like science fiction.
Sure, the imagery is fantastical, but what's interesting is that he learns about things like the cyclical nature of time and the interconnectedness of all things, ideas that modern science is just beginning to grasp.
This is like he's a time-traveling astronaut gathering wisdom from across the cosmos.
That's one way to put it. And he brings this knowledge back to Earth, hoping to guide humanity towards a higher level of understanding.
But it's not all sunshine and roses, right? There's this whole dark side to the story with brothers of darkness using their powers to manipulate and control humanity.
The classic battle of good versus evil. But it makes you think, are there unseen forces at play in our world, influencing us in ways we don't even realize?
It's a little unsettling to think about. Are we just pawns in some cosmic game?
Well, Thoth doesn't think we're powerless. He talks about brothers of light who fight against the darkness. And he gives instructions on how to develop our own inner strength and connect with this positive force. He calls it magic, but it sounds a lot like what we call mindfulness or mental discipline today.
So we're not just victims of circumstance. We have the power to choose our path and fight back against those negative influences. I like that message.
And me too.
Yeah.
And it ties into one of the most fascinating concepts in the tablets, this idea of 9 cycles of consciousness.
9 cycles. Okay, break that down for me. What does that even mean?
Think of it like a ladder of evolution. Humanity is currently on one of the lower rungs, but we have the potential to climb higher, to expand our awareness, and tap into greater levels of wisdom and power.
So we're not just stuck in our current state. We can actually evolve our consciousness.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
That's where Thoth's teachings come in. He gives specific exercises and practices designed to cultivate our mental and spiritual abilities.
Okay, this is where I start taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking meditation or something more esoteric?
He mentions techniques like visualization, where you consciously create mental images to shape your reality, and breathwork, which he believed could influence our energy and state of mind. He also stresses the importance of balance in all things.
When you say balance, do you mean like work-life balance or something deeper?
He's talking about aligning our physical, mental, and spiritual selves. He believed that true power comes from this inner harmony.
That makes sense. When I'm feeling out of balance, everything feels harder.
Exactly. And Thoth suggests that a lot of our problems stem from this lack of inner harmony.
So the key to personal growth and even societal progress lies in finding this balance within ourselves.
That seems to be his message. And he goes even further, offering a radical perspective on death itself.
Wait, death? What does he say about that? I'm suddenly feeling a little nervous.
Don't worry, he doesn't describe it as an ending. He presents it as a transition to a higher plane of existence, something we can consciously prepare for.
Wow, that's a very different way of looking at things. So he's not advocating for fear of death, but rather for understanding it as part of a larger process of growth and evolution.
Exactly. And perhaps the most mind-boggling concept of all is his claim of mastering time travel.
Time travel? Seriously? That's taking things to a whole new level.
According to the tablets, Thoth traveled through time, learning from the past, and even getting glimpses into the future. But he emphasizes that the future isn't set in stone. It's constantly being shaped by our choices and actions.
So we're all time travelers in a way.
Yeah.
Creating our own futures with every decision we make. That's a lot of responsibility.
It is, and it really underscores the importance of living consciously and making choices that align with our highest value.
Okay, my head is spinning a bit. We've gone from ancient Atlantis to time travel. From cosmic battles to the power of mindfulness. I need a moment to process all this. What are the key takeaways? What's the big picture message Thoth is trying to convey?
That's a great question. And I think it's something we'll continue to unpack as we delve deeper into the tablets. But for now, I think it's safe to say that Thoth believed in the inherent power and potential of humanity. He saw us as beings capable of incredible growth and evolution, capable of shaping our own destinies, and even influencing the course of history.
That's a powerful message, and one that really resonates with me. But we've only scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore in the Emerald Tablets. So for all you busy minds out there, stick with us as we continue this deep dive into the wisdom of Thoth the Atlantean. All right, Witter listeners, we're back, and we're diving deeper into the Emerald Tablets. And I gotta say, my mind is already buzzing with questions.
Oh, it's a lot to take in, for sure. But even if we approach it all with, a healthy dose of skepticism, there are some pretty fascinating nuggets of wisdom in there.
So let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about Thoth's backstory and some of the, wilder elements of the tablets, but what can we actually apply to our lives today? What's the practical stuff?
Well, one thing that really jumps out at me is Thoth's emphasis on balance. He keeps talking about aligning our physical, astral, and mental selves.
You mentioned this astral thing earlier. Can you elaborate on that a bit? It sounds kind of out there.
Think of it as a plane of existence beyond the physical, where our thoughts and emotions have a real impact, like a subtle energy field that surrounds and interacts with our physical bodies.
So it's not just about, eating our veggies and hitting the gym. It's about cultivating our mental and emotional well-being, too.
Exactly. Thoth believed that neglecting any of these aspects creates imbalance, and that can lead to all sorts of problems. He even suggests that many illnesses stem from disturbances in the astral body.
That's interesting. It makes you wonder how much our thoughts and emotions really do affect our physical health. I mean, there's definitely a lot of research coming out about the mind-body connection these days.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Thoth was talking about this stuff thousands of years ago. He believed that true health and vitality come from achieving harmony within ourselves.
Okay, so how do we achieve this balance? Does he offer any practical advice?
He offers a whole range of practices, from visualization and breath work to working with affirmations and mantras. He also stresses the importance of being mindful of our thoughts and emotions, learning to observe them without judgment.
So it's kind of like modern mindfulness techniques.
It really is, and that's what I find so fascinating about these tablets. They present ancient wisdom that's surprisingly relevant to our lives today.
So even if we don't buy into the whole Thoth built the pyramids thing, we can still find value in his teachings about personal growth and self-mastery.
Precisely. And that connects to another key theme, the idea that we're not fixed beings, that we have the potential to evolve and expand our consciousness.
You mentioned the 9 cycles of consciousness earlier. Can you unpack that a bit for us?
It's a complex concept, but basically Thoth describes 9 levels of awareness, with humanity currently hanging out on one of the lower levels. He suggests that through dedicated effort and specific practices, we can move up these cycles, expanding our understanding of ourselves and the universe.
It's like leveling up in a video game. But instead of gaining new skills, we're developing our consciousness.
I like that analogy. And Thoth believed that this evolution wasn't just for individuals, but for humanity as a whole. He envisioned a future where we've transcended our current limitations and achieved a higher state of being.
It's a hopeful vision, for sure, especially in a world that often feels so divided and chaotic. But it also makes me wonder, how do we actually move up these cycles? What are the specific practices he recommends?
He emphasizes the importance of developing our mental and spiritual faculties, learning to harness the power of our thoughts and emotions. He talks about techniques like visualization, where you consciously create mental images to shape your reality, and breath work, which he believed could influence our energy and state of mind.
So it's not just about passive meditation. It's about actively engaging our minds and directing our energy.
Exactly. And he also mentions working with affirmations, using positive statements to kind of reprogram our subconscious beliefs. He was convinced that our thoughts create our reality, and that by consciously choosing our thoughts, we can shape our experiences.
That's a powerful concept.
Yeah.
It suggests that we have way more control over our lives than we often realize.
Absolutely. And that ties into another major theme, this idea that we're not just victims of circumstance. We have the power to choose our path and create our own destiny.
But didn't he also talk about forces of darkness trying to manipulate us? Doesn't that kind of contradict the idea of free will?
It's definitely a tricky issue. He does acknowledge the existence of these negative forces, but he emphasizes that ultimately we have the power to choose how we respond to them. He suggests that by cultivating our inner strength and connecting with this light within, we can overcome these challenges.
So it's like he's saying that we all have the potential for both good and evil within us. And it's up to us to choose which path we follow.
That's a great way to put it. And he provides specific instructions on how to connect with this light through meditation, visualization, and acts of kindness and compassion. He believed that by radiating positive energy, we not only strengthen ourselves, but we contribute to a more harmonious world.
I love that. It's not just about personal growth. It's about making a positive impact on the world around us. But let's be real. Some of this stuff sounds pretty far out there. Time travel, communicating with extraterrestrials, mastering death. Are we supposed to take all of this literally?
That's the beauty of these tablets. They invite us to interpret them on multiple levels. We can approach them as literal accounts, as allegorical tales, or as a blend of both. Ultimately, it's up to each individual to decide what resonates with them.
It's less about believing everything we read and more about using these ideas as tools for personal reflection and growth.
Exactly. And that's where the real value lies. Even if we dismiss the fantastical elements, the underlying themes of balanced personal evolution and the power of consciousness are incredibly relevant to our lives today.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these ancient teachings can apply to our modern challenges. But there's still so much to unpack.
We've only scratched the surface, but let's take a moment to recap what we've learned so far.
All right, so we've explored Thoth's backstory and the idea of Atlantis as this advanced civilization that fell to darkness. We've talked about the halls of Amenti as this hidden realm guiding our spiritual evolution. And we've touched on Thoth's travels to other planets and dimensions where he learned about time and the interconnectedness of everything.
We've also talked about his emphasis on balance, aligning our physical, astral, and mental selves. We've explored the 9 cycles of consciousness and the potential for humans to evolve and expand their awareness. And we've looked at some specific practices he recommends, like visualization, breathwork, and affirmations.
It's definitely a lot to digest. But I think what's resonating most with me is this idea that we're not just passive observers in this grand cosmic play. We're active participants with the power to shape our own destinies and contribute to a more harmonious world.
Absolutely. That's a powerful message and definitely worth sharing with our listeners. But let's not stop there. There's still more to uncover in the Emerald Tablets, including Thoth's perspective on death and his alleged mastery of time travel. So stay with us, Witter listeners, as we continue to dive into the wisdom of Thoth the Atlantean.
And we're back, Witter listeners, for the final part of our deep dive into the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. So far, we've journeyed from ancient Atlantis to the concept of astral bodies, and even explored those 9 cycles of consciousness.
And we've seen how, even if we take some of it as myth and metaphor, these ancient teachings offer insights that are surprisingly relevant to modern ideas about self-improvement and spirituality.
Yeah, it's like Thoth was a proto-life coach, dropping cosmic wisdom way before anyone ever heard of Tony Robbins.
Now, you mentioned something earlier about Thoth's perspective on death. That's always a topic that gets people thinking.
Right, he doesn't see death as the end of the line, but as a transition to a higher plane of existence. It's an idea that pops up in a lot of spiritual traditions, but Thoth seems to suggest we can actually consciously navigate this transition.
He gives instructions on how to prepare for death, not with fear, but with a sense of awareness and understanding. He believed that the soul continues to evolve even after it leaves the physical body.
So it's not just about living a good life. It's about preparing for what comes next. Because it's a whole different way of looking at things, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you think about the legacy you leave behind, not just in terms of material things, but in the impact you have on others and the energy you put out into the world.
And then there's that mind-bending concept of time travel. Thoth has supposedly mastered this ability, traveling through time to learn from the past and even glimpse into the future.
While the idea of building a time machine might seem, pretty far out there, Thoth's message about time is actually quite profound. He emphasizes that the future isn't fixed. It's constantly being shaped by the choices we make and the actions we take.
So we're all time travelers in a way, creating our futures with every decision we make.
Wow. It really makes you think twice about hitting that snooze button.
Absolutely. Thoth's teachings challenge us to live consciously, to make choices that align with our deepest aspirations.
All right, so we've covered a lot of fantastical concepts, but what's the core message here? What can our listeners take away from the Emerald Tablets, even if they don't buy into everything literally?
I think the most important takeaway is this. Within each of us lies incredible potential for growth and evolution. Thoth reminds us that we're not limited by our current circumstances or beliefs.
He's encouraging us to embrace our power, to cultivate our inner strength, and to consciously shape our own reality.
Exactly. He's calling on us to step into our full potential, not just for our own benefit, but for the betterment of humanity as a whole.
That's a powerful message. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Emerald Tablets, I'm left with a sense of wonder and possibility. Me too. And even though some of Thoth's claims might seem a bit out there, the core teachings about self-mastery, balance, and the power of consciousness are timeless, and they really speak to something universal.
So, Witter listeners, we encourage you to explore these ideas further. Dive into the Emerald Tablets yourselves and see what resonates with you, what speaks to your own experience.
Ask yourself, what areas of your life could use a little more balance? What steps can you take to cultivate your inner strength and expand your consciousness?
And most importantly, how can you use your unique gifts and talents to make a positive impact on the world?
Remember, the journey of self-discovery is an ongoing adventure. Never stop seeking wisdom. Keep questioning, keep exploring.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Emerald Tablets. Until next time, Witter listeners, keep seeking wisdom and keep it witty.
Thanks for listening to Witter, Who Has Time to Read? Produced by One Media. Please support the author by purchasing the book or audiobook using the link in the description. It's a great way to help keep the art of writing alive. And stay in the loop. Subscribe to our newsletter for updates on weekly deep dives. And don't forget to share your thoughts or suggest our next deep dive at witterpodcast@gmail.com.